just making myself comfortable whilst all of you, whoever wants to log in today, is signing in. Now that I'm in my comfy, as per requested shalwar kameez, fiddling with the music. I don't know if you can hear any of this, or if anybody recognizes it. So many familiar faces. Yes, Mehdi Hassan, of course. So crazy they don't make music like this anymore, huh? Amazing. Hi, Saira. I can hear it. Good. Good. So it's 4 o'clock. We could start. I'm going to turn this down a little bit so that I can hear myself. So Assalamu alaikum to all of you friends who've joined today. This is amazing to see familiar faces every time. So, while everybody else rolls in, I'm going to just discuss the two things that have been out. In the poll, first, of course, was the wardrobe. It's quite interesting that I asked everyone out there whether I should stick to shalwar kameez or my not newly discovered, but newly discovered on here, shalwar kameez versus t-shirts, and everybody said shalwar kurta. So here I am in another very Pakistani creation. This is a pale sage green handloom khadar kurta that's been tailored by my favorite tailor at Musaji's in Karachi. And of course I have a cream again pure cotton latte ki shalwar, which is about 5 yards. So this is my dress code, urban dress code. And for those who've traveled with me into the interior, into other parts of the country, I have those collared shalwar kameezes, which are much more functional in many ways. So while that happens, let me see if I can. So there's that in terms of the dress code that everybody had a preference to versus my t-shirts. But I'll go back to t-shirt at some point because I will run out of these. So maybe next week, if you'll allow me, I'll get back to my t-shirt and jeans garb. The other thing is, there's been a conversation about how soon we should go back to the academic content in terms of these chats. The academic content would have been the role of geography and landscape and terrain and our location as a region, connection and relevance to the river Indus, etc., much more technical stuff. So that has been kind of split, but again, the audience, all of you, the Cube Edutour community, friends of mine, family, etc., they've all said we'd like to hear some more stories. Of course, because I have so many, I've spent like a good chunk of last night not sleeping, but thinking about which story to pick to give you the next one. And there's so many stories. So I thought that today I'll pick a story that actually has some connection to geography and relevance to landscape and whatnot. So I'm going to tell you a story about one of many trips to Chitral. So that's going to be storytelling, and one of the things that is interesting about storytelling is that when you get to any of these locations, whether you're in the city of Karachi gathering people's stories about their life in Karachi from when they were children, or if you go into the interior and you ask them about stories that they've grown up listening to or that they've inherited through their grandparents, about forts, about palaces, about the lives of the rulers and the emperors, that everybody has their own version. And the interesting thing is that our stories of our experiences of these places, of these journeys, and as I keep saying, that the Cube Edutour process is a journey. It's a journey that I started many years ago, and over the years the journey has started gathering moss. It started gathering folks like you, and it's become more elaborate, more serious, and now you're all a part of my journey, and I love that. I love that I have such fantastic companions, people who are enthusiastic about the history, who get as excited about it, who get as romantically moved by it, who get so emotionally touched by it. And it's so nice to not feel enormously lonely in terms of how one responds to architectural history and architectural heritage, and of course the people that one meets, and the combination of the people and the buildings and the temperature and the sunrise, the sunsets, the dust in your air, the dust in your hair, the feeling of sand being blown against your skin, the sounds of the birds, the sounds of the landscape. Sometimes it echoes, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you hear this sort of very spa-like, distant babbling brooks and streams, depending on where you are in the mountains and what the valley is like. Sometimes a rustling of leaves. And these are experiences that we all share on these trips on the way to a location. And then it sits with you in your memory bank, and it becomes a cloud of support memories to the actual building that you're looking at, and then the building gets folded into it, and suddenly you've created this incredible kind of a pie to take home and to eat in small pieces afterwards. As you go through your memories, you consume this and you devour this bite by bite, bite by central bites of memories, and you sort of languish in it over time, you know. And you've been seeing this. I've been posting the Bahawalpur trip pictures, and it's amazing how much content has been generated. And it's such a terrible way to talk about how many experiences have been captured, how many experiences have been shared, how many experiences we've all nurtured, and we've all been sort of driven through and come out the other end. And all of those experiences, all the shared experiences together, has left us with our own set of memories. And now all the members of the group will every so often refer to a memory. And you know, it's been weeks since we've been back, and so it's interesting that even the stories that I will tell you are from my memories and my experiences. And I think that to be able to go back into this bank of memories, into this bank of rich sort of creative experiences of what it was like, what you expected to happen, what you expected to see, and what really happened, and the sense, you know, I keep talking about the sense of these memories, but we bring back sense from that location. So I think being able to really get deep into these memories and really enjoy them, almost like that, you know, that like that piece of chocolate that you crave for at 3 a.m, and then you climb downstairs or you get out of your bed and you secretly go and you open the fridge, and there lies this incredible memory of a recent experience with someplace where you discovered this great, tremendous historical architectural heritage, and sitting there in this form of this gorgeous chocolate. You take it out and secretly consume it, and the next day you tell people. So I think that if we can start talking about and thinking about and reliving our memories and sharing those memories in this really beautiful, rich, deep, sensual manner, it'd be so wonderful. And certainly I encourage it, because that's how I experience my memories, and they allow me to escape back into a time of timelessness. You know, those memories are invaluable and they're priceless. And you know, at that time sometimes they seem difficult to navigate through and traverse, like some of the stories that I'll tell you, but really looking back at them, they are quite amazing. So I don't know how many of you have been to Chitral. Changiz, great to see you. Jia, great to see you. Thank you for joining us from all different parts of the country, and of course India. We've made some new friends in the last few weeks who I'm hoping will join us. Ritik and Ravi, who's in New York right now, and I don't think will be able to join. But anyway, so Chitral is for me a home away from home. And many years ago, a dear friend of mine, Shazia, who had been saying to me for years that Zain, you have to go explore the mountains, you have to go explore the mountains, you're really missing out. And I lived abroad, so I hadn't had the opportunities. Then once I came back to Karachi, I was like, you know what, let's look into this. You know, she keeps saying this, let's really explore what is about these mountains that she keeps saying I should go to. So a few years ago I decided one summer was going to be dedicated to exploring the mountains. So I did the Hunza area in the center, drove up from Islamabad. I did the Shigar side. Shigar is an amazing story when I went back with when Baneen was there, but the Chitral story was amazing. So I am heading to Chitral, and it was going to be a road trip from Islamabad up to Chitral and Kailash and Garam Chashma and all of that. And I mentioned this to a couple of friends, and one said, yes, I'd like to come with you. I haven't explored that area. So I said, chalo saath, let's go do it. And then another friend found out, and she said, I want to take my boys. So I have these two fantastic adventurous ladies with me, and these three boys, two teenagers and one preteen. And I'm thinking, my God, what am I getting myself into? But the beauty of trips into the mountains is one's ability to surrender. It's a really incredible trip to do in any form, whether you're camping or you're doing it in sort of a semi-adventurous manner like we did, having made our home base fantastic places to stay. We spent a night in Bisham outside of Islamabad. We spent a night at the Swat Serena, got lost in the Swat markets and the bazaars that was so old school, just beautiful, like sets from films. We spent a night at the Hindu Kush Heights in the Chitral, which is literally like home away from home for me. The family that looks after it is connected to the Chitral royalty, the tremendous, absolutely tremendous mentor in my life, Siraj al-Mulk, and his beautiful wife Ghazala, and their daughters Zainab and Mehnaz. Mehnaz was there, who's also been my yoga teacher. So it's so we base ourselves out of the Hindu Kush Heights. That has an amazing story in and of itself of how the building was built and the story of the architect who lived there to build it. And then we sort of take the drivers and we head out to other parts of that region. So what I want to talk to you about, really the story I want to tell today, is about the Lowari Pass. So before the Lowari tunnel was made, the Lowari top, the Lowari is a mountain. It's the final peak that you drive across right before the Wakhan border, and it's that border crossing between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Huge checkpost for all kinds of smuggled goods, etc. But it's also famous for the largest number of switchbacks in the world. Switchbacks are basically the zigzagging roads that take you up a mountain or down the other side. Those things are called switchbacks. Quite beautiful. So the Lowari Pass has 64, which is 30 plus on one side and 32 on the other side. So it's this elaborate drive, which is much more than a drive. I mean, I say it's a drive, but it's far more challenging on the character and on your psyche and your emotions than just another drive. It took us 10 hours, 5 hours up and 5 hours down. So it's interesting, we left Swat, we left a beautiful idyllic palace that had been turned into the Serena. Swat, headed out, we've had a wonderful night's sleep, used the swimming pool, had fantastic service, and we head out through Malakand and we're heading up. Our drivers were, so we had two Land Cruisers, comfortable, strong cars, solid like tanks for the mountains, comfortable enough. There was three of us in one car. We also managed to pick up en route. In my announcement that I'm going, there was somebody who responded to me on Twitter saying, I'd like to go, I need a ride. So we picked up this wonderful young man who was a student from Kashmir, and Uwais joined us. So there was myself, Uwais and Romana in one car, and then Ruqayya and her boys in the other. And back, following each other, we went and we approached this pass. I'm expecting it to be a channel between two mountains, but actually it's this peak that one has to climb, and you look at it and you think, oh my God, this is really daunting. How are we going to do this? And as you're looking at this mountain, which is harsh terrain, it's rocky, it's got some conifers, it's got some shrubbery, but it's generally a very harsh terrain. And as you look down, is the running water and the stream and this gorgeous valley that you've just driven through. You've been climbing up. It's been this gradual, very undulating, unobtrusive climb. You've been through Ahmedabad and you've been through all those other little towns, and you've seen some beautiful turbans and some gorgeous clothes and some classic Greek noses and some bright blue eyes against weather-beaten tan skin. And then suddenly you're looking at this mountain that is spotted with these massive trucks. And I mean the trucks, right? Not the long 14-wheelers, but the trucks that are elaborately painted and colored. And you think, how are those trucks going on there? Because that road, 10 miles, 12 miles, 13 miles, 14 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles, 60 miles, 70 miles, 80 miles, 90 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles, 400 miles, 500 miles, 600 miles, 700 miles, 800 miles, 900 miles, 1000 miles, 2000 miles, 3000 miles, 4000 miles, 5000 miles, 6000 miles, 7000 miles, 8000 miles, 9000 miles, 100,000 miles, 200,000 miles, 300,000 miles, 400,000 miles, 500,000 miles, 600,000 miles, 700,000 miles, 800,000 miles, 900,000 miles, 1000,000 miles, 11,000 miles, 12,000 miles, 13,000 miles, 14,000 miles, 15,000 miles, 16,000 miles, 17,000 which those trucks are on far in the distance, up in the mountains, dotted in that along that switchback all the way up, one behind the other. Right? So you can imagine the zigzag of these brightly colored, like jewels stuck into the mountains, and they're moving. So you've got this like movements of reds and oranges and pinks and blues and paintings, flashes of paintings of landscapes and trees. You know how these trucks are. They're these gorgeous canvases. So you see these canvases in distance and you realize that they're on the same road that you're on. And your road is only wide enough for one car and maybe a motorcycle on one side. So it's this really narrow road. And it isn't a road at all. It's not tarmac. It's just a dirt path. So it's an edge that's been carved out of the mountains, and it's been flattened. And over the years of all these trucks driving up, it's had these tire tracks marked into it that have become hard and permanent. And so you think, gosh, we're in the middle of all of this, and we have two very civilized cars. Yes, they're land cruisers, and yes, they're tanks, but they're tanks by urban environments, urban standards. Now you look at them and you feel this big. And you think, gosh, this could potentially be it. If we fall down this ravine, it's over. And if we don't, then we're just stuck here at this snail's pace, climbing up these mountains. Who knows when we'll actually get to our destination. So it's this incredibly challenging time to think about oneself. And so, okay, we're stuck in these cars with these people that are friends of ours. You make the most of the music, you make the most of the conversation. It's a really great time to get to know one another because you're trapped. And I have signed us up for this mobile trap, and now nobody can get out of and say, Zain, you're insane. We're not doing this. We're going back. There's no going back now. There's just going forward. There's going up. There's up along the 30-foot switchbacks, and down the other end, you're stuck with me, and this is it. So we start this journey, and we're having a great time. And you know what's the things that catch my eye, apart from the fact that everybody is forced to forget their urban lives, they're forced to forget anything that they thought was important to themselves. The cars, the air conditioning has all been turned off because our engines are under strain, they're under stress, and we're pushing these cars up this steep slope. You can't stop. So we had to roll down our windows, which means it's summer, this is July, it's hot, and the mountain sun beats down on you through your windows. My arm is outside, one arm gets tanned, gets burnt, the other one doesn't. So, you know, we're suddenly like facing situations that we wouldn't have been prepared for, expecting in any way whatsoever. And yet you just kind of go with the flow. You've got, you know, you feel the warm breeze mixed in with the cool air every so often. You feel the grit of the mountainside terrain blowing in the wind and coming and hitting you in your face, on your skin. And you look down, you see this gorgeous, the rivers, you see the cows, the livestock, you see the clouds in the distance. And it's this picture perfect, almost view of heaven far away in the distance. But in front of you is this wall of painted back end of truck. So it's this elaborate, colorful, with poetry, with landscape paintings, with flying peacocks and fairies and all sorts of interesting creatures. But the amazing thing is about these trucks. Suddenly, we know these trucks as really heavy, difficult to maneuver creatures all over the city. But now you see these trucks and they twist. So there's this truck that's in front of you that's twisting like this because of the way the road is. And it's suddenly become this really lightweight, extremely graceful, elegant, like this dancing machine. It's like you're mesmerized by watching the axles of this creature that you thought had no suspension, had no mobility, had no grace, suddenly be forced by the landscape, by the terrain, to humanize. And it became gentle, and they became fluid, and they turned those corners, those sharp corners, almost like 45-degree corners, with a certain pace, with a certain elegance, hoping that there wasn't another car coming down the other side. Keep in mind, this was a two-way track. It was a dual carriageway. One car plus a bike width. That's it. And yet, there were times when we had trucks coming down the other way, and that was breathtakingly fearsome. because you would watch, first of all, you're watching these dancing trucks. You're mesmerized by this markhor like ballet happening right in front of your eyes. And as you're watching the truck in front of you veer around the corner and take that sharp hairpin turn, there's another car that comes around and your heart stops. You think, where is that truck going to go? And one truck is going to fall off the edge. So that truck comes right to the very edge. Literally, the wheels come right to the edge, and you see him coming around the corner. And this truck coming towards you on the other side is up, half of it is up on the mountains. So these two trucks do this extremely surgically precise maneuvering within inches of each other. Unspoken words, no horns, no noise, no badtamizi of any sort, no yelling and screaming at each other. Each one of these truck drivers is part of this silent language. And that silent language is so audible and so loud. You know, you really are stuck on the stage of this incredible performance. And your drivers are aware of this because they do this circuit. They're local drivers that come to pick us up and drive us around the mountains. It cannot be one of us. I'm not sure I could have done this on my own if I was behind the wheel of this car, but Musa was brilliant and he lives there, he's a local, so he's used to doing all of these journeys. And they're all aware of this, and it happens in this beautifully elegant manner. It's life-threatening. Trucks can fall off the edge, things can go wrong, things can get stuck, you could potentially run into each other. Nothing happens that is out of one's, that's not in one's control. Sure enough, I'm sitting in the front seat, I'm watching all this, and then we go from check post to check every so often. We're heading up towards Chandur, it's July, the Polo Festival is coming up in the background, that's our context. So every so often there's a car like ours also, not close enough for us to know them or be friends, but you can see them dotted that, you know, there's some early arrivals who are coming in, civilian types like ourselves, urbanites. And every time we come to a check post, which actually kicks in after we finish the ride to the top of the Lowari, so let me finish that first. So in the middle of all of this, the check post stories are hilarious because I'm sent out to deal with the army rangers at the check post, of course. But before we get there, we're all part of this truck dance performance. And lo and behold, one of the truck's axles break. So suddenly everybody comes to a grinding halt. Everybody comes to a grinding halt. We have no idea what's happening. We see these drivers come out from all the trucks in front of us. We see the drivers come out from the trucks behind us. And they all chit-chat. There's some scuffling. There's some moving back and forth. So eventually, 10-15 minutes later, sitting in the sun, boiling, burning in the sun, wondering what's happening. And all you can see is trucks in front of you, trucks behind you, trucks below on the switchbacks that you've covered, and trucks above on the switchbacks that you have yet to cover. So we're about halfway. There's no place to go. There's no water, no bathrooms, no restaurants, no homes, nothing. I mean, you're in the middle of God's country. It's just spectacular. I mean, it's so difficult, and you have to surrender to nature's will and the universe's power. You just sit back and you breathe and you say, you know what, this is it. So eventually, several minutes later, news comes back to us that one of the trucks turning that hairpin had broken its axle, and of course it's caused a traffic jam. So now nobody. So then another 20 minutes goes by, and eventually a bunch of people, the drivers, who don't know each other, or maybe they do know from this journey, they get together. They manage to push one of the trucks back. They manage to push it up on one side so that there's and lock it off with a lot of rocks so it doesn't tumble over. So there's this truck sitting on the turn at this sort of an angle, and other people are driving past. Still, some help comes to fix its axle or take it away. So it could turn over. Luckily, it doesn't. So I'm watching this from our car backwards, and we have to keep moving forward. So finally, we move forward. The trucks that were stuck behind move forward. We continue our journey, having seen how even a very simple mechanical error is handled in this really beautiful grace and graciousness in the middle of nowhere on this peak that we're climbing. So we continue to watch these trucks move and dance in their slow motion and the sound of their engines as they come around the corner, and we're watching the landscape, we're watching the clouds move and the sun coming through it. You're seeing the green change to brown and the brown becoming green again, and then there's some shrubbery, some underbrush. Sometimes the road is super steep, sometimes it's got a little bit of an edge, and we're seeing our journey continue, and you're just sort of lost in this rhythmic pattern of switchback after switchback after switchback climbing up. So at some point, yours truly feels really comfortable and thinks, wow, this is really quite beautiful. Let's take a photo. So I think that this is a grand time for photo opportunity, because I look down and I can see 10 or 12 switchbacks. I look up and I can see a whole bunch. And I'm thinking, wow, we're only halfway through and it's about 3 in the afternoon. We said we'll be in Chitral, told Siraj and his team at Hindu Kushites will be there in the evening. Doesn't look like we're going to be there anytime soon. So I had a phone like the one I have now. I take it in my hand and I put it outside the window. I'm sitting in the front seat. The other car is behind us. So there's myself and Musa in the front, and there's Romana and Oais behind the back seat. And then in the car behind us is their driver, Ruqayya, in the front seat, and their kids. And I thought this is a great shot because we're at this curve. So if I take my camera and just put it next to my front side view mirror, I'll be able to get us, Romana, and those guys and the jeeps behind them. And if my angle is right, I'll get the... So I'm setting up what I'm thinking is going to be this mind-blowing photo. We're still moving. Please keep in mind, we're moving and there are trucks coming down the other side also. While all of this is happening, I think this is time for a classic, really super Nat Geo quality photo. So Zain Mustafa sticks his camera out. There's a bump in the car, my camera falls. So suddenly my phone, which is my camera, has fallen onto the ground in between the movement of these trucks. There's a truck coming towards us. There's us going. I've dropped my phone onto this hard terrain, and of course it's smashed. We think it's all finished, right? I'm thinking, good Lord, what do I do? Musa has hit the brake. We've stopped. The jeep behind us had stopped. And while I'm in split seconds still processing, what do I do? Romana has jumped out the back seat. She's done this to the oncoming truck. She's literally held up the truck with one finger. With the other hand, she's reached up, picked up the phone, checked it and said, Zain, your phone is fine. All of this happened in a minute, maybe less. It was unbelievable that she held up this oncoming truck, which stopped with one finger, reached out, picked up the phone. Now the phone, I always have a rubber casing on the phone, and it had fallen, not face down, but it had fallen on its back. And I thought, if this phone cracks or it breaks or it gets damaged, all my numbers are there, all my contacts are there. I have nothing written in my diary. We're really going to be screwed because the entire logistics, operations, everything of this trip are in my hands. All the people I need to call and see, their numbers are all in that phone. And if that phone dies, we're all like in a terrible mess. So she picks up the phone, jumps back into the car, hands me the phone, says, Musa gaadi chalao. So, and we get moving like none of this had happened. Except in slow motion, I had seen my camera, I felt the bump in the car, I'd seen my camera fly out of my hand, entirely slow motion. And it had fallen to the ground, and at that point I'm thinking, my camera's broken, this is over, the trip is going to be a mess. And this disaster is processing in my head. In the meantime, slow motion, the door is open from the back. One adventure like Harrison Ford from Raiders of the Lost Ark has jumped out from the back of our Jeep, picked up the phone, stopped the oncoming truck, who stopped. All of those trucks stopped while this phone was salvaged off this rocky, barren, terrible floor. And it survived. So magic of this nature is what happens in the mountains. That phone survived. We all lived to laugh about this story. And we arrived in Chitral much later in the evening, about 9:30 or 10 in the evening, exhausted. But we had this hilarious story to tell about the fact that by the time Zain processed that his phone had fallen and dropped onto the ground, Romana had rushed out and picked it up and saved the phone and salvaged the whole situation. She didn't get killed, the truck didn't run over, it didn't hit us, nobody was damaged. And how beautiful that this woman jumps out of the car, and the oncoming truck, who could have easily driven over my phone and not really cared, actually stopped and let her do this bit of picking up the phone, salvaging the heart of this trip's logistics, giving it back, and then we all just continued like nothing had ever happened. So it's quite wonderful. And then we continue. So we continue to the top of the Lowari Pass. You get to the Welcome Chitral sign and the checkpost at the top of the peak, and now you're entering the district of Chitral and everybody's excited. We get out of the car, we stretch our legs, take pictures, selfies, group shots, blah blah blah, get back to the car. And it's now, everybody's hungry, there's no place to eat, so it's now lunchtime and we still have 3 or 4 hours down. So we get down onto the other side and we start our switchbacks descent on the other side, which is a completely different landscape, because now you're looking at Chitral. On the way in, we were looking at the other side of Chitral, the non-Chitrali side, and now we're looking at the Chitrali Valley. And by the way, this is the same Lowari Pass. If you fly into Chitral, the plane takes you over exactly this point, and then you land, very sharp descent, into Chitral Airport. So now we're looking at our destinations. So it's literally like within hand's reach, and yet potentially 5 or 6 hours away. So we're watching this gorgeous Chitrali Valley. We can see in the far distance against the mountain Hindu Kush Heights, and now we're sort of doing our slow descent. We have kids who are cranky and tired, and checkposts that I have to get out at and show everybody Shanakhti cards and get them to sign them in. And I remember, initially at the checkposts, I would be taking everybody's Shanakhti cards and get them all signed in. Then as we went through checkpost after checkpost, then the ladies' Shanakhti cards got left behind, and I told them it's just us, the men, just sign in the men, and that's good enough. Then the drivers got left behind. I said, the same drivers, same cars, we've just signed them up earlier, just take myself and somebody else's Oasis. And then eventually by the time I had enough of these checkposts and signing the same thing over and over again, I eventually would just say, you know what, here's my ID card, take my details, the rest of them are all my responsibility. And they all sort of knew each other. They'd probably known that this car was coming, so they were kind of expecting us. And I think at the final checkpost, I eventually said, listen, I'm done with this signing in. I'm so bored with this signing up my Shanakhti card and its numbers over and over and over again. Here's my card, you fill it up, how about you give me a cup of tea? So the guys were so nice, they actually started laughing. They said, how tired are you? I said, I need a cup of tea. So chai pila di mujhe. So unme se 3 bande the, bore ho rahe the. They sat and they filled out the registration of our entry with my Shanakhti card. I had a cup of tea, and they said, is anybody else? I said, well, I have all these women with me anyways, and maybe they want some tea. So I stuck my head out of the chowki and I said, bhai, kisi ko chai chahiye? Does any of you guys want some tea? And they said, no, we're fine. So the guy was like, fine. He served me his chai from his flask. Was very amused that here's this man who said, I'm not filling this out, you do this for yourself. And off we went. So we get down at the end of the pass, and bladders are bursting. We're starving to death. And we see this rinky-dink little hole in the wall, would even be glamorizing it, dhaba. And this dhaba has a couple of trucks standing outside of it, and thatched roofs, black rock, indigenous building from the neighborhood. So the driver said, we pull up our 2 jeeps, and he says, sir, aap jaake dekh lein, go and check this out first, because we have all these ladies with us. We're not sure what's happening inside, what these people will think. Please keep in mind, this was in those days when I was still in my tracksuit and t-shirt. So forget the ladies, I was more alien than anybody else there, because the men are used to seeing each other in a certain garb, in a certain code of conduct and dress code. And then this man walks in track pants and trainers, but he has tattoos and a colorful t-shirt. I think I had a yellow t-shirt on. And I don't know if I had my fedora with me. I may have had a hat. So I get there, it's like those cowboy films where the shutter, the half door opens, and from the dust ball rolling in comes this dusty and thirsty, like a 7-Up ad cowboy, and he comes into this cowboy bar in the middle of nowhere, and everybody turns around and look at him. So this is what happened. I walked in there, and all these bearded, scary looking, dirty shalwar kameez, big turbans, chadars wrapped around them. It was a dark, dingy place. Charpais everywhere. If I had known better, it could have passed off as an opium den. Except there was no opium. There was chai and there was food. And they were just simple people having food, having tea. And I walked in, and they all stopped. All conversations stopped. And they turned around and they looked at me. Like, who the hell is this man? And then the owner came and said, Assalamu alaikum, and gave me a hug. He said, so nice to see you. You look exhausted. How many are you? Had this whole thing in Urdu. And I said, we're so many people. I have women. Do you have a place where we can sit? Can you make room for us? And then quickly in Chitrali, which is a language called Khwar, he pointed at some guys in the back corner who were sitting in this sort of like in semi-enclosed area. It was just tucked away in the corner. He said, empty your charpais. There were 3-4 charpais. He got those guys to move and said, go sit somewhere else. Told me that I'll get somebody to clean this place up. You get your ladies to come and sit here. But first, check the food, see if you want to eat. I said, you listen, we have to eat whatever you have because there isn't anything else for miles. He said, no, I'll make something for you, but come check the food first. So I'm dragged into the kitchen, and he opens up all his dekchis. He gives me a chammach. He pulls it out. He blows on it to make sure it's not hot, doesn't burn my lips. Says, "Chakhya, please taste it." So first I'm put through this food tasting of all the stuff that's in the kitchen, and it's this dark, the smoke has made the ceiling black, and the tandoor is black. It's a lot of black and sooty, smoky environment. And there I am, lit by this one little window in my yellow t-shirt, looking completely out of place, feeling out of place, but welcomed with such warmth. I mean, they welcomed us like they'd known us forever. Like this would have been like a 5-star hotel would have welcomed you. It was just the most beautiful, warm, humane, humble, friendly, gorgeous welcome that we had. I checked the food. It was delicious, absolutely mind-blowing. Delicious, simple food, but so tasty. Or I was just really hungry. So I went back out. I got the ladies to come in, got the kids to come in, got the drivers to come in. We got our corner. And whoever had moved from those charpais wasn't upset that this is the group that it was emptied for. They were all, I think, fairly amused and entertained by us, to be honest, because we were so out of place. We're so urban, and not even urban from their region. They could tell that we had come from some completely other planet, some completely other city of the country. We looked different. Our Urdu was different, of course. Most of us wanted to speak English. So we were like the entertainment for them for the afternoon. The food came out, it was brilliant. Of course, the cold drinks were brought in the bottles, and the boys wanted straws. They didn't have straws. We were constantly using hand sanitizers because, as urbanites, we're constantly worried about these things. And this is all a pre-coronavirus story. So we eat, we're satiated, we put nimbu and everything, amazing hot tandoori rotis, great like salans and vegetables, amazing dal. So whatever he could provide that I had approved in the kitchen is brought out, and this feast is laid out for us, which is just, it was a sight for sore eyes, but the way we were warmly welcomed and kept and sat and made as comfortable as possible was just out of this world. The bathroom, of course, everybody wanted to use the bathroom. The bathroom was not usable, right? So the ladies said, we'll wait. And the young boys, I was like, well, you can go outside. So I suggested to the boys, the teenage boys, I said, you need to pee, it's no problem. Just go around the corner. And this is how all the men probably do it here anyway, in the bushes. So I suggested to the boys that just go behind the building and relieve your bladders. And being urbanites, of course, they were so embarrassed by the whole suggestion. They were like, Uncle Zain, you must be crazy. We're not going to go do all of this in the public. What if somebody sees? I'm like, what if somebody sees? Go do it. You've got to worry about your bladder. Nobody's interested in seeing you or your parts or your condition. Just go do it. Make yourselves comfortable. So they said no. Then I offered another suggestion. How about, I said, I'll go with you. I'll pee on one side, and then you can pee on the other side. So that way you're comfortable, that you're not alone, and there's not some like creepy man who's watching you. And there weren't any creepy men. There was nobody watching them. Nobody was interested in any such activity. Then I thought, how do I make this child go? Because you have to go. I mean, we still have several hours. So next to this was, now we'd come back down, right? So now that stream and that river we moved away from climbing up is right next to us on the other side of this road, which is still a car and a little bit wide. And it had two little shops, little khokas, very cute, gorgeous little like shops that would have sold shampoo and soap and cigarettes and chewing gum and stuff like that, miswak. So there was this little gap between these two buildings, maybe like 10 feet. And I said, listen, why don't you go between those gaps and be down there, right? So not into the river, but in that direction. So that way, maybe the sound of the water will inspire you. And this poor child just thought I was getting madder and crazier by the minute. So he said, absolutely no way. I said, okay, listen, I'm going to offer this to you again. I said, like teenagers, I said, I will pee into that same location and you can pee next to me. And he was not buying any of it. So never mind. I mean, I peed at the corner at the back behind the building, and these children didn't, and the women didn't, but I peed. And it was a moment between the food and the moving of these people away from their chairs, and my going into the kitchen and checking the food and coming back out and emptying out the whole section of this poor dhaba for, you know, these VIP women that were with me, my entire entourage of women and children. It was the most hilarious moment and a magical moment nonetheless. Ruqayya has some fantastic pictures taken from there because it was all single lit. The light was all coming from a few set of windows on one side, the other side was all dark. So this is very artistic, very romantic pictures. And you know, this is what I say to people, is when you look at a photo, it's oftentimes missing all of this information. It's missing the smell of the soot. It's missing the scent of the wood burning chula. It's missing the scent of the dal being cooked in local spices, and the roti that's gone freshly kneaded flour that's gone into the tandoor, and the smell that's coming from there through that's wafting through not only the windows out to where our cars are parked, but it's wafting through the dhaba, through the restaurant. And then the noise, the general murmur of these people speaking to each other in Khwar. Some of them are curious about who we are, where we've come from. And there's this discussion, you know, there's this discussion happening on the other charpais, on the other tables, about who are these people, where they're going, where they come from, and why the hell do they look so tired? Well, obviously they look tired, that I have just dragged them across 64 switchbacks. They're going to be tired. And I'm surprised that I even survived it, nobody killed me. But I suppose they figured that he's the only one who knows where he's going. So even if this is like the worst trip in your entire life, stick by him, because what would be worse is being left here without him. So I think out of sheer desperation, lack of choice, everybody just sort of like followed me. And of course, you know, we had a great time. We got to Chitral. It was 9 o'clock at night. And of course, we were covered in mitti, and we all needed showers, and our deodorants had failed us, and we needed, you know, there was mitti in our shoes. I mean, we looked like we'd come off some like Lawrence of Arabia kind of trip. And but what great stories we brought with us, and amazing food we'd had. Of course, everyone rushed for their loos, but those photos are priceless. And pictures that we take, often one wonders what's happening in the background. You know, what else was the noise that the camera didn't pick up, and what were the smells that the camera didn't pick up, and what were the textures that, you know, the texture of the worn in bait, the weaving of the charpai, the worn corners of the wood on it. You know, it's all got a shine to it because it's just been used so many times and moved around and stored and wiped and cleaned and then rubbed by people's hands and feet and shoes. So it was a really amazing and intense experience wandering through this little moment of the truckers' lives, truckers that go through that Chitral corridor, the Chitral Lowari Pass corridor, with goods, heavily laden trucks. And these are those heavily laden trucks that I was mentioning earlier, which just glided through this incredibly difficult terrain, up and down, and they moved and they danced and they sort of like spoke to each other and they frolicked their way through it. These huge, heavy creatures, colorful, jewel-like specks, and of course the sun is setting, so the lighting is gorgeous. The rays are coming through the clouds like this. It's hitting all of these landscapes, so you can almost hear this orchestra of angels singing in the background as you're going through this difficult chunk of time with me. And then we arrive in this dodgy, dark dhaba, and they welcome you like your family. So really, really quite beautiful. And that's where I feel like it's unfortunate that these experiences have to be captured either on film, or even film you don't get the smells, right? You don't get the textures. So there's nothing better than coming along on one of these tours where you see the role the landscape has played, and you can see the roads that are today that were used once by horsemen coming in and bringing goods, food, ammunition, warriors bringing livestock across, bringing chicken, bringing their women, bringing families, bringing the elderly on that same path. For millennia, they've been crossing this region through the Lowari Pass. It now has a tunnel that you can take through, and we've taken the tunnel. That's another trip, another story for another trip. Sana's just joined us, and Sana can share her experience with on the Lowari tunnel trip, but and also on the flight to Chitral. She's done this like really scary bumpy flight in and out of Chitral with me as well. But those are the moments that one has to sort of live through, be in the moment, not worry about what's going to happen next, not worry about your day's schedule or the next day's schedule, or oftentimes are people asking me, ab kya karenge, ab next ghante mein kya hoga, hum 4 baje kya karenge, 6 baje kya karenge. You get into situations like this, you just have to surrender to whatever happens. I couldn't have predicted the breakdown of that axle. I had no idea what food we were going to get served, if the food would have been okay or not, or if we would drive for a few more hours till we found the next dhaba. And these are experiences of the Cube Edutour journey, that in different parts of the country we will experience different things. In Sindh it's different, in Punjab it's different, Gilgit-Baltistan is different. Next time we get together, if you're still interested in the stories, I'll tell you about this insane 22-hour drive that another friend of mine, Hamza, and I did on an Edutour to Shigar. We were guests for Khana Badosh Baitak, invited by Banin and Ahmed, and we get to Islamabad, and our flight to Shigar has been cancelled because of bad weather. And of course, I've committed to an Edutour where there's charcoal drawings happening, and there's a history lecture, and there's astanas and khankas to look at it. People are already there except for me. So that is another epic 22-hour journey that was done in one go through the night. But these experiences are so important, to put yourself into the shoes of your predecessors, people who've been through there, who've walked the same paths, who've driven the same paths. Imagine the sound of the horses, where they stopped, where they rested, where did they set up their khimas and their tents. What was a journey like back then? If it was arduous for us now, with all our creature comforts, and I mean arduous enough that we felt the difficulty, but not that bad that we lost limbs or we lost lives, thank God. We still came back, we had a great laugh, we tell these stories, almost like myths that have now been circulated amongst the friends. So these are all these incredible experiences that must be had, and Pakistan is rich. It's an incredibly rich country for all sorts of experiences of this nature, and mostly because I think thanks to our tourism being such an embryonic industry, we can actually still have this very raw and rugged feel for what's truly out there and what history may have left us. If it starts becoming too gentrified and the infrastructure becomes more than the basic fundamentals that we need it to be, then maybe some of this magic, this raw, untouched, mythical, mysterious magic might be lost. Who knows? But something to think about. And there are, this was my first story, the crossing the Lowari Pass, but I have many stories. And if you guys are, ever interested in, not ever, but I have a feeling if I put up a poll again for what the next session should be, whether it should be academic or another one of my insane stories, you'll probably reach out for the insane stories, which is fine. I'll do the Shigar ones and whatnot. So this was the one story for today of the crossing of the Lowari Pass. We arrived in Chitral safe and sound at the Hindu Kush Heights. We told everybody this story, and of course they all laughed. And the best thing is that Siraj al-Mulk, who was sitting in the garden at that time, he said, "Did you enjoy yourself?" I said, "You know what? I did." And he said, "Would you like to do it again?" I said, "Of course. So I haven't even showered. I haven't signed into my room yet." And I'm saying, "Yes, I would love to do this trip again." He said, "So would I. Next time you and I will do this, even if we can fly, even if the tunnel is open, you and I will drive through the Lowari Pass, because it is a spectacular experience. And now that I have a partner in crime who loves it, who appreciates it, then why don't you and I do this?" Siraj and I haven't had time yet to do that trip again, but it's definitely on my agenda to go through the Lowari Pass again, the old school style, over the top, through the switchbacks. So if any of you guys are interested in doing this insane, soul-shifting drive, experience, trip, call it tour, call it whatever you want, with us, let me know. And as soon as this quarantine and lockdown ends and we're able to travel again, we should just gather a group of people and make that the Edutour. Is the historic role of the Lowari Pass, who's come through there, what purpose does it serve now, the role of the landscape and terrain is really key in understanding why this spot was picked to use as a place, as a window to come through from the Wakhan border, the Afghanistan border. And Afghanistan's history, especially Kabul's history, is very crucial and very connected to our own history. So the role that the Wakhan border, which is now no man's land, and the Lowari Pass plays to connect the two countries through the mountains, through what is really the lesser of the Himalayas, because there's the Himalayas, then there's the Karakoram, then there's the Hindu Kush, and then you come down to the Margala Hills. And our journey had started in Islamabad from the Margala Hills. So at this point, we're at the Hindu Kush, a mountain range, and there's still some of the tallest peaks in the world. You still see them snow-capped even in July, and it's without a doubt the most beautiful mountainscape anywhere in the world. I've seen several, and really ours, I'm not being biased, they really are the most spectacular of all of them. So I'm going to wind up with today's story here. I'm sorry if it's been too fast, or yeah, we can walk over it. Zulfi, that's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. We should walk over it. It'll take us much longer, but I'm definitely up for a walk over it. Even without the cars, it would be, I don't know how many days it'll take, but Zulfi, you're on for sure. Let's do that walk. If there's anybody who has questions, I have a few minutes to take a few questions. Otherwise, we're going to need to lock down. Otherwise, Instagram will shut me off. Let me know if you have questions about any of this. Drop in your questions into our DMs. Otherwise, I'll put a poll up. If there's something else you want to speak about next time, let me know. We're back in 3 days. I'll be here again. Today was Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 o'clock. Either academics or storytelling, whichever you prefer. Let me know. In the meantime, stay at home, stay safe, look after yourself. Khuda Hafiz, till next time.